Blog Talk Radio.
Down to sleep, lay me down. I pray my soul is mine to keep. My soul can never step outside this bed, never into all the evil. Now back from the dead.
Are you scared?
He's here.
The calling hours.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
Episode of the Calling Hours Horror Podcast on Horror Society Radio. Once again, it is I, your head undertaker, the dead man Michael Jones of HorrorSociety.com. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Once again, we are inching closer and closer to everyone's favorite time of the year, Halloween. But as I've stated in the past, there's another big date coming up, and that is the 16th of this month. And on that date, that is when the 8 films to die for that are part of the After Dark Horrorfest will be premiering at select theaters around the country, and the films will also be available on VOD. I bring that up because, as you guys know, this past month on the Calling Hours Horror Podcast, we have been featuring the films that comprise the After Dark Horrorfest 8 Films to Die For. And on this episode, we are covering the final movie, and that is director Valeri Milev's Re-Kill. On to discuss the film, we will have actor Jesse Garcia, also from The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, and From Dusk Till Dawn, the series. Actress and co-producer Stephanie Caleb of Captivity, Husk, and Ritual. And we will also be joined by actor Roger Cross, The X-Files, Arrow, and The Strain. Now, just so you guys know, because the release is this Friday, the interview may not go an hour this evening, so we will have them on for as long as we can. Hopefully we will get in as much of the information about the film and what went into making it. So be patient with that. I just did receive some of the screeners from After Dark, so we will be reviewing those films over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned here for that, and make sure to go to HorrorSociety.com. In our digital dismemberment reviews this evening, we will be covering Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of The Human Centipede from The Human Centipede, the complete sequence box set. And we will also be covering SGL Entertainment's Blu-ray release of Deadly Revisions. In our Metal Massacre Spotlight this evening, we will be featuring Metal Blade recording artist Ram and songs from their newest CD, Svbersvm. Give you a little bit of background on them. Ram was created in 1999 by Harry Granroth, who wanted to form a real, true heavy metal band. He was sick of the misinterpretation of metal that ruled the scene at the time and had a pile of material that he wanted to bring to life. He soon found Daniel Johansson, a young but experienced and very talented guitar player who wielded a traditional metal guitar style. The two started working on some of Harry's earlier material and began to write new songs. After a long and tiresome search, Henry then found Oscar Karlquist, a powerful heavy metal vocalist with a mutual hatred for the current metal scene. Oscar quickly became involved in the songwriting process and quickly crafted interesting lyrics to accompany the music. The backbone of Ram was formed. Oscar brought in drummer Morgan Pedersen, one of the few drummers left who still played the 70s, 80s hard and heavy drumming style. They then recruited the legendary Leif Larson, an icon in Gothenburg metal, as he had previously been a member of Frozen Eyes. On September 13th of 2013, Ram celebrated the 10th anniversary of the release of the Sudden Impact EP with a special concert in Gothenburg. The first decade of heavy metal tyranny was complete. Ram continued to destroy stages through the spring of 2015 all over Europe. Then they once again entered the studio to record their fourth album, Svbersvm. Recordings was finished in July 2015. Svbersvm is another step upon the black path that is Ram's career and showcases the band's best songwriting and performances ever. Svbersvm is to be released at the end of October 2015, to be specific, October 30th. Expect a malicious attack of pure heavy metal tyranny. So without further ado, let's go with world podcast exclusive music from the band Ram. The name of the CD is Svbersvm. The name of the song is Holy Death. welcome back. You just heard world podcast exclusive music from Ram from their upcoming CD Svbersvm. The name of that song was Holy Death. Make sure to stay tuned throughout the episode this evening as we will be playing two more selections from that upcoming CD. Make sure to head on over to Metal Blade Records. Check out what's going on with Ram, touring, merchandise, new CDs. You can also check out some of the other great metal that Metal Blade Records provides to us. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our first digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we are covering SGL Entertainment's Blu-ray release of Deadly Revisions. Really wanted to get on with this company. I've seen SGL putting out quality indie horror, and I felt like it was time to finally bring them and their releases into the show and start reviewing them, and was fortunate enough to get a hold of Jeffrey A. Swanson, who's in charge over there. And the fine man sent me several movies to review, which we will be reviewing over the next couple of weeks on the podcast. And there will also be reviews on Horror Society, and there probably will be several that make it into some of the publications that I write for, Living Dead Magazine, Coffin Cuties, Digital Dead Magazine, Gore Noir. So make sure to watch out for those. And, of course, as more info becomes available on what magazines I will be publishing that stuff in, I will let you guys know. Deadly Revisions was made in 2014. It is a horror thriller that was directed by Gregory Blair, and it is his directorial debut. The film also stars one of the gentlemen who's quickly becoming one of my favorite actors out there, and that is Bill Oberst Jr. You guys should remember that name, of course, when I had Bill on, when we had Billy Pon on to talk about Circus of the Dead. So if that's any indication right there, that should tell you that you're in for something good. When horror writer and filmmaker Grafton Torn, played by Bill, wakes from a coma, he's horrified to find that he can't remember the events that led to his coma and leg injury. His physician has recommended that Grafton try to recover his memories by using hypnotherapy and medication while resting at a cabin in a peaceful location. Grafton agrees to this, but he finds that he's plagued by nightmares that involve not only the characters of his own creation, but also potentially real memories. Things are made worse when these nightmares begin to spill over into his waking life, making Grafton question his very sanity. The film has a great cast. Of course, I mentioned Bill as Grafton Torn. We have Mikhail Bloch as Dieter McManus, Cindy Merrill as Allie Morris, Lise Hart as Kat Torn, Gregory Blair as Crawford Davis, Ronnie Coleman as Dr. Myers, Sean Gerardo as Ash, Donna Lee Heising, who we've had on, as Nurse Voorhees, and Josh Patterson as the newsman Hatchet Man. Those of you that are going into this film looking for a gore fest, this is not your kind of movie. If you're into more of a thrilling psychological type of terror, then this movie certainly delivers it in spades. Again, as I had said before, Bill is very quickly becoming one of my favorite actors out there, and once again, he delivers in this film. It's not quite as a manic, over-the-top performance as in Circus of the Dead, but that's not what's really needed for this character. In fact, Bill shows the other side of his acting spectrum by playing the character, mousy might be the wrong word, but he seems to be almost very meek when you first meet Grafton. So he wakes up from a coma, basically, in the hospital, with no remembrance of what happened or how he received a leg injury that does nerve damage. At the recommendation of his doctor and of his friend Dieter, he goes out to a cabin in the woods that's owned by Dieter to basically relax and to recover, maybe even start writing again, as he writes screenplays for horror films. And he's been very successful over the years, as you find out through the film. He's won several awards, screenplays, of course, made into movies. I really liked one of the props in the film looked like a demonic baby doll. I actually wouldn't mind owning one of those. That was a pretty cool-looking set piece and just very creepy. So Grafton stays out there by himself, and he starts to have these dreams, and he's not really sure if they're flashbacks, if his mind is making things up. He's afraid that he may be going crazy as his father did before him. We also find out that he's going through a bad separation and divorce from his wife, Kat. And through flashbacks that he has in dreams, you see that, it started to become tumultuous towards the end of the relationship. So Grafton is dealing with that on top of everything else. Well, as his dreams start to become more and more vivid, he's not sure if he's hallucinating or if he's actually seeing certain events. He thinks he sees people outside his window, included a man with a noose who looks very much like a character from one of his stories, and a hatchet man, a man with a large hatchet going around. He begins to see strange clues all around the house, including outside at a stump where there appear to be fresh axe marks in a stump out there. His friend Dieter becomes concerned, so Grafton starts to see a hypnotherapist. And the hypnotherapist would put him under and give him different shots and stuff to try and help him get through the dreams and let him know that he's safe. After several therapy sessions, it's not quite apparent whether or not things are getting better or worse for Grafton. The hypnotherapist starts to become a little bit concerned for her own personal safety around Grafton, including one situation where he takes her to a shed out back to show her an axe, and he's very adamant about the stump where the marks in the wood are, and he keeps telling her he didn't do it. So they wind up having one last session, and she puts him under, and she makes sure as a post-hypnotic suggestion that when he awakens that he will be more relaxed and he will happily let her leave. So she winds up leaving, and dubious circumstances happen with her, and Grafton is torn as to whether or not he has done grievous bodily damage to her or if he just imagined it. He calls his friend Dieter back out and tries to explain to him everything that's going on and tries to give him the number to the therapist. The number winds up being disconnected, and Dieter really thinks that Grafton is losing it, and in fact tells Grafton that he murdered his wife and that Dieter covered up the events of the murder to spare him anything because they have been such good friends over the years. Well, Grafton becomes more torn up mentally and emotionally about being told that he killed his wife. I don't want to give away the ending to the movie. You'll have to watch it, but there are several very well-placed twists and turns, and the ending, to me, very much justifies the means of what happens in the movie. I think the film was very beautifully shot. I love the dialogue, the interactions between the characters. I think the location really helps with the film as well. You get that really nice sense of isolation and dread when Grafton is out there by himself. I think the director did a really good job when it comes to how Grafton's dreams and or hallucinations are presented in the film as well. You really are left wondering whether Grafton is psychologically ill, if he's just suffering from terrible delusions. It's all there. And Bill ties everything together very nicely with his performances. like I said, it's a little bit more of a subdued role for Bill, and I think he runs with that very well, and it really helps to come full circle and show the different elements of his acting style. The film was extremely well critically received. It won awards in several locations, including Best Picture at Matchflick.com Flickr Awards, Best Narrative Feature at the Los Angeles Film Awards. It also won a Best Director of Indie Horror Film at the EOTM Awards, Best Screenplay at the Terror Film Festival, Best Actor at the Fantastic Horror Film Festival, and Best Actress for from the Fantastic Horror Film Festival. Overall, I would give this movie a 3.5, 4. I mean, somewhat right around in that period. Again, like I said, there's a lot visually to like. It's very impressive for a first-time director. He found great talent. He had a great crew, and they got everything together and made it run in such a believable way that it's very highly enjoyable. On the disc, you have 2 different trailers and a bloopers reel. This is the first time I have viewed an SGL film. Overall, I would give the disc about a 7 out of 10. If I had any complaint, and I hope Jeffrey doesn't get mad, the only thing that I would have liked to have seen more on this disc was maybe some interviews behind the scenes. There wasn't a lot in terms of special effects, but it would have been cool, maybe to do a featurette on some of the set pieces, some of the posters, the devil doll that I had mentioned, but it is certainly not something that should detract you from getting this disc. Make sure to head on over to SGL Entertainment and pick up your copy of Deadly Revisions. Coming up in about 5 minutes, we're going to go into our feature interviews with the cast and crew from Rekill. We will be joined by actor Jesse Garcia, actress Stephanie Caleb, and actor Roger Cross. But before that, we're going to go into our second digital dismemberment, our second Metal Massacre Spotlight for the evening. Once again, with World Podcast exclusive music. The name of the band is Ram. The name of the CD is Svbersvm, and the song is The Usurper. back once again. World Podcast exclusive music from Ram. The name of the CD is Svbersvm. The name of the song was The Usurper. Make sure to continue to listen in because we will have one more song from them. But now it's time for our feature interview, and we're going to be joined by members of Rekill, one of the films that is part of the After Dark Horrorfest 8 Films to Die For. And if everything has gone correctly, I should right now have Roger Cross with me. Roger, are you there? Well, it looks like I may not have Roger yet, but I do have another guest with me. Hi, this is Mike Jones from the... Is this Rebecca? Or excuse me, Stephanie?
Yep, you've got Stephanie on.
Hi, Stephanie. I'm trying to get a hold of Roger here as well. They asked me to call him, so he should be with us shortly, and I know that we're waiting on Jesse Garcia. But
that is correct.
That is correct. Well, you know, you were an actress and a co-producer on this film, and I want to state again, I'd spoken with Tatiana earlier, and she said there was a chance that you guys may not be able, all of you or some of you may not be able to stay on for the whole hour. So I'm going to try to get as much in, and, you know, if you have to leave, just certainly let me know, and we'll go from there. But one of the big questions people have asked me, first off, about Rekill, since you were an actress and a producer on the film, why did it take so long for Rekill to finally come out?
That is a good question. So I don't know if you noticed, but After Dark Films, we took a little bit of a hiatus. We took a couple years off.
Leave a message, Steve, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Roger went straight to Roger's voicemail there. Are you there, Stephanie? Oh, looks like we might have accidentally lost Stephanie there. Let me give you guys a little bit of background info on this. It's been 5 years since the outbreak that wiped out 85% of the world's population, but the war between reanimates and humans wages on. Most of the major cities are still uninhabitable. With the few surviving cities, the Reans have been segregated into zones and are policed by the R Division of the quasi-SWAT unit, who hunt to re-kill the Reans in the hope of quelling a second outbreak. R Division Frontline is America's #1 TV show in this post-apocalyptic world. Weekly, the show follows different R Division units on the battlefield as they work to keep America safe and Rean-free. Jimmy, the videographer for the Outbreak Network, thought this week's episode would be like every other. He was wrong. Through the lens of his eyes and camera, we see raw, revealed, and uncut, that which could be mankind's last day. So this is certainly another zombie film, but it appears to be a lot more action-packed. The film was initially made in 2010, I believe, and was directed by Valeri Milev and written by Michael Hurst. So we're still waiting for our guests. Stephanie got dropped somehow while we were waiting for Roger to come on. We got his voicemail. We'll try Roger one more time here.
Hello?
Hi, is this Roger?
Hello? It's Roger.
Hi, Roger. It looks like
again.
we got Stephanie back as well, and Jesse Garcia has joined us as well. Sorry, we had a little bit of snafu with the phones there and everything going on. I want to thank all of you all for being on. And
Thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah. You know it. And like I'd said, I'd spoken with Tatiana earlier. She said there was the possibility that some or all of you would not be able to stay for the whole hour. So if you have to go, just certainly let me know, and I will try to get as much in while I have you guys on the air. And Stephanie, before you
I probably only have I probably only have 10 minutes more. I'm sorry.
Okay, I will get the next question to you.
I think I've got I can probably stay on for about 25, and then I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I got 25.
Okay, cool. Well, Roger, since you have to go the soonest, let me ask you. You're certainly no stranger to the horror genre. Of course, you've done the X-Files, you've done the Strain and everything. What was it that really appealed to you about Re-Kill?
You know what? I love the fact that it had a great sense of humor, and I love the commercials. I thought, and the idea that it was done kind of like a docudrama, where this person you're in it, so it's gonna give you this insider thing, and because of course the corporate sponsorship, then they'd cut away to these great ads in the middle of it, like buy this gun, the housewife holding this big gun up that she likes and things like that. And I thought that was what was unique and very cool about this film.
Now, I had started to ask Stephanie if Stephanie could fill us in really quick. The movie was delayed for a while. Can you tell us really quick why the film was delayed?
Yeah, so as I was saying, this is kind of a passion project for the owner of our company, Courtney Solomon. As we were shooting, he ended up there were some issues in Bulgaria because there's sometimes a bit of a language barrier going on there with your crews and then also your talent. So Courtney really did take over as a co-director of this film. He's directed other things, previously Dungeons and Dragons and An American Haunting, and then after that he directed Getaway. So it was, it was easy for him to step into that role. Well, it definitely became a passion project of his. He kept seeing, more visions that were reimagined for the film, and we did some reshoots in Baton Rouge. And then he got distracted he needed to direct Getaway with Ethan Hawke and Selena Gomez, and so we put it on the side for a little bit just because he was having trouble getting it edited to the way that he wanted it to. Now that it is, we are so incredibly pleased with the film, and, it's great that people that have seen it and have reviewed it think it's an incredible film. It's scary, it's enthralling, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of rounds of bullets going off, but more importantly, you also really get close to the characters, and then there's a lot of humor, like Roger was saying. There's the humor of these commercials that not only bring you into the world, but also kind of it's just this alternate reality that sometimes you can't help laughing at when something sad is happening.
And it was kind of it's a twisted kind of fun thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed from the stuff that I've been able to read about it and you talking about the commercials is that it kind of reminded me of Starship Troopers, and Starship Troopers certainly had a certain amount of humor to it, as well as almost like that propaganda feel.
Yes.
Roger, for you, again, you play the role of Sarge in the film. When you have that kind of sort of humor in a film, how do you balance that against the seriousness of what you're facing in a zombie attack?
Well, I think that was what was great about it, because we knew what was going on, because we knew this, camera crews coming along with us, and, we can't really, it's kind of like reality television in a lot of ways. If you have a, camera on a bunch of police officers, that's not how they normally act. They kind of act up a little bit. Some may resent it a little bit. And so part of the thing is I didn't have to worry about that, because I could play it as straight as I wanted to, and that would just balance us out, or as deadly if you want to, if you will. And part of the frustration is, get away from me. I really want to just be an asshole at this moment, if I can say that. And
you can. You certainly
but I
can.
know I have to control myself. But I know I have to control myself because this camera crew beside me. So it was great.
Now, Jesse, for you, again, you're certainly not you're not a stranger to the horror genre either. In fact, you're part of the From Dusk Till Dawn TV series, and we had one of your fellow co-stars from that on when we were talking to Windwalkers. What was it that really appealed to you about Re-Kill, and what can you tell us about your character of Hernandez in the film?
I thought it was a funny script too. It was just a really great script, and I thought it was an interesting take on on the genre. It's kind of unique in its own way, and then you know, it was an opportunity to go to Bulgaria and shoot. Honestly, I've never been out of the country to shoot. So, like, I thought it'd be kind of cool and and I've always been a fan of like these kind of films. I'm a fan of the horror genre. And it was just the script. The script was just good. It was just good. And then I heard Roger was going to do it, and I was a fan of his, and Scott Adkins, he's a monster. So it was like I figured you know, at the worst, I would go and have fun. And from the clips that I've seen, it's really fun, and I think it's going to be a fun show to watch.
Now, one of the things that you know, like I said, especially with the two of you guys, you know, you've done so much television and you know, other film work. You know, the After Dark Horrorfest has been considered the pinnacle of independent horror and getting it out there to the fans. Roger, with you first, you know, what was it like when you found out that the film was finally getting released and that After Dark was putting out as part of its series?
I was like, what took you guys so long? I was like, come on, guys.
Right? He was at our launch party a few nights ago, and yeah, he had a lot to say. So it was good to see Jesse. We haven't seen you in forever.
I'm in Austin right now.
I know.
Yeah. See, and I had to
Roger
go back to Vancouver right now. But I tell you, man, it's great that it's out there.
I mean, I'm finally glad to see it because, I mean, you know, I had heard about the film and then it just kind of dropped off of the map. You know, Jesse, how was it for you when you found out it was being released? You know, what was your initial thought?
I was like, what? Which one's Rico? Like, I shot a movie called Rico. The one about the people in the woods. Oh no, that's not it. That's not it. Okay. I was just excited to see it.
You know,
I just know watching it, we're gonna all look so young.
That's gonna look good on your reel when you send that out to people. You know, oh man, this guy looks so young.
Man, we look so young. When we shot it, 11, 12 years ago?
No, honestly, the one and only scene that I shot as a, quote, actress was on my birthday, and I just had another birthday 6 years later.
Nice.
I know, it's like, and then there was you teased us a little bit, and I remember doing ADR like 2 years ago and thinking, okay, finally, and then this is like, really? It's like,
Or there's the Comic-Con booth. Yeah.
That's right, the Comic-Con booth. We did that. It is like, all right, let's go.
You know, come on. We had the passion, and we really wanted to put this film out. And you know, sometimes you just have these crazy dudes, and he's not on the call, so I can make fun of him. But you've got these crazy guys that these are their passion projects, and they just want to keep working on it. So.
Well, that's it.
I mean,
and that's the great thing about it. We knew that he loved it so much, and that's, you know, part of the blessing and curse of it, because he wanted it to be so good, you know, the best it could be. And even when we went down to Baton Rouge, we shot down there, myself and Scott and stuff, and, you know, we loved it. And, you know, I'm happy he's so passionate about it. Let's put it that way. You know, so I'm glad it's finally people are going to get to see it. And I'm telling you, it's the script and the humor of it and everything else combined that people are going to really love.
Now, Roger, I know you have to go in a second, but I just wanted to ask you before you left. You know, I've been following, you know, the After Dark on Facebook. Tatiana's been real good about sending me all of the info and stuff. And you guys talk about, you know, these parties and stuff. When you guys have gone to this, you talk about the Comic-Con booth and stuff. For you, Roger, you know, what has response been like? What are fans saying? What are critics saying? And are you surprised about the amount of attention that the film is getting from all of these outlets?
Yes, Roger, tell us.
Well, I was at Comic-Con this year, but it wasn't about this film because, you know, we didn't know that it was going to be released yet. And so, but I did have questions, you know, from a lot of people about when is it coming out. and things like that. And so now it'll be interesting to see, my next journey there, because I was there for my other show, Dark Matter, and stuff. So it was just one of those things where people haven't known it. So I really haven't faced anything about it yet, and so we'll see.
But are you planning on attending any of the releases anywhere? Are you going to be in a particular city for the release?
You're not in
I will
town,
not be able to. Pardon me? What?
Oh yeah, it's Stephanie. I was gonna say I don't think he's in town. He flew in for the party and then he flew his ass out.
I'm in Vancouver. I mean, I can tell you this much. I'm shooting Planet of the Apes.
Oh wow.
That's fantastic.
Right now in Vancouver, so it's gonna be
someday, Roger, you'll get a break and you'll get some good movies. Maybe Rekill will be that one little bump for you.
Thank you, Jesse. I knew you loved me, man.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah. How's everything? Austin's a beautiful city. What are you doing down there? I guess we'll catch up on our own time.
I'm not working. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm not working. We're in hiatus right now.
Ah, okay. Hey, at least beautiful city.
We do see your face spread out all over town here in Los Angeles. You're on every wild posting in the world, so it's hard to miss you. Yeah.
Wait, I didn't know there was posters around.
Yeah,
wait, really?
What are you living in the dark ages?
I am. I'm remodeling a house, so I have no idea what's going on anywhere.
We all know what you're
amazing.
doing, Dusty. You're not taking photography in Bulgaria anymore. You're too big for us.
Sure.
Bring me
Roger,
back. I know that you have to go. I want to thank you so much for being on. I would love to have you on when you have more time one day and really go in depth on your career and a little bit more about Rekill, but it is certainly appreciated that you were able to join us.
I'm happy I was able to join you too. Yes, please. I'd love to set that up and have a full conversation with you.
It sounds great. Thank you so much, Roger.
So great to hear from you, Roger.
Hey, Steph, Jess, good talking to you guys, hearing your voices. We'll have to have beverages soon.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye, Rod.
Okay, we're still here with Stephanie Caleb and with Jesse Garcia of Rekill. Stephanie, one of the other things that I noticed when I was looking at your IMDb page is
Wait,
I believe
what was Jesse just asking?
Oh, nothing. It wasn't important. Go ahead.
One of the things that I noticed is that you were a producer, I believe, on at least 6 of the 8, if not all 8 of the 8 films to die for this year. How did you manage to become involved as a producer for all of the films?
Well, it depends. There's different titles for different things that you do. I was a full producer on Rekill. I'm an executive producer for the other films, and that's because I head up our acquisitions department here, along with the marketing and distribution department. So we have a team of people that screened, over 100 films this year for 8 Films to Die For, and chose, which films were going to be the ones that we were going to acquire and distribute. So,
now, Jesse,
Go ahead.
Jesse, let me ask you, one of the things that I noticed looking over your IMDb is I had mentioned the fact that you've done so much television, including The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, things like that, of course, From Dusk Till Dawn. When you do that much television, for you, how easy is it for you to transition from shooting for television to shooting for film?
I mean, for me, it's no different. I got to learn my lines, be prepared, and come to work and to hit my mark. I mean, for me, it's no different. I don't find a difference in acting for film than I do for television. I mean, I prepare the same. I eat the same food.
Well, did you really eat the same food when you were in Bulgaria, Jesse?
No, I didn't. I had a lot of tomatoes and cucumbers.
I did too. I think we all got on the Greek salad diet when we were there.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so so my high maintenance thing is food. Like that's kind of like the biggest thing for me is like I have a particular diet. So that's why she's teasing me about the food.
Well, it's funny that you actually say that because all of the other films, and I've had people come on and and talk about them, is they all talked about the food in the different locations that they lived in. So I mean, you hit on something I was going to ask about anyway. Now, again, with Re-Kill being such an action-oriented film, in 2012. You went on to also be in the Avengers. How was it going from a smaller scale action set like that to going on to something as large as the Avengers?
Well, just because the budget, distinguishes the two, like $200 million movie and however much Re-Kill costs, we still did some pretty fucking cool, big action stuff with Re-Kill. I mean, the Bulgarian stunt teams are amazing. They're top notch. We did the special effects. We did top notch. I mean, it's just two different genres, and two different studios. They're both pretty big. And for the cool part of walking into the Avengers is just walking into the helicarrier set and just seeing how magnificent it is. You know what I mean? And like Robert Downey Jr.'s over there, and Scarlett Johansson's over there, and Samuel Jackson's yelling at me for something. I mean, it's kind of hard to compare the two, but at the same time, they both. I mean, being that Avengers is Avengers, Re-Kill still has some really cool and I wouldn't, even though it's like on the scale it would be fairly independent, it's still got some money behind it. You know what I mean? Even if it didn't show, even if the numbers don't show it has money, it looks like it has money. You know what I'm saying? So
I would agree from that scene.
After like 7 years of working on it, the money there was more and more money put into it.
Re-Kill is a $200 million movie.
I mean,
Re-Kill is now a $200 million movie.
Exactly. We did manage to. I think part of the blessing of working in Bulgaria, and there were some things that were not blessings, but one of the blessings is he's right. Like that team in Bulgaria is fantastic. There might sometimes be a little bit of a language barrier, but they really knew what the hell they were doing. We got off like 62,000 rounds of shots when we were shooting all the zombies.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was nuts. There's actually some really great like city streets that shoot well for New York there that we are then allowed to blow up. Some of the disadvantages are sometimes you have an actress that has a bit thicker of an accent that you would want, and then your producer has to take over for her and do her role. But overall, I think we got a lot for our money, and like I said, when you work on it for quite a few years, you end up spending a lot more money anyway.
Well, that brings up an interesting concept. I've worked on independent films, certainly nothing as large as Re-Kill, but the first film I worked on, it basically took us 2 years to shoot it, and then it was another year before it was actually released to DVD. And for you, Stephanie, as the co-producer, can you talk about that process? I mean, how is it working on a film that takes so long to finally see the light of day?
Well, it becomes a passion project for all of us. I can tell you, since I'm part of the development process, it's even that much longer because we see the scripts, we go through a number of scripts, we find the one that we love, and I think one of the things that attracted both Jesse and Roger to this project is the script. Mike Hurst wrote it. It was heartfelt, and it was action packed, and it was zombies, but it was also comedic. It had a little bit of everything going for it, and it was worth us putting our money behind and going out and shooting it and producing it. But that doesn't mean you get to do it right away. The choice was to do it in Bulgaria. it's a labor of love, and then this, more than any film that we've ever done, has been more of a labor of love because, you know, the birthdays pass by, and I guess we're all going to have a reunion with drinks and watch ourselves looking 6 years younger. But
is it only 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 years according to IMDb. Yeah, it was almost 6 years.
I shot the last scene, Jesse. I mark it by my birthday. I shot the last scene on my birthday, and I just had my birthday as of 6 years later last month. So yeah, it's been 6 years since we wrapped, but we've done a lot of reshoots on it. We added a lot more, I think, of the comedy and the commercials that really kind of set it apart from everything. It's been tough, and you know, we took breaks to do other things that were also passion projects that got done a little bit faster. We launched a company called Cinelou Films, and we developed, produced, and distributed a film called Cake with Jennifer Aniston, and that was a completely different kind of a project to be working on.
Which I love, by the way. I was just talking about that movie today.
Oh, you were? Thank God.
I was literally just talking about it. I have a couple friends who are in that movie, and I just think that movie is so great.
Oh, you do. We'll talk about that on Facebook later. It was a great movie, but you know, one of the things I also discovered in the 2 years that we took a break from After Dark Films is that you think you're gonna lighten your emotional load a little bit when you do these dramas, but the reality is it's a real life horror all of itself, and it's tough.
Now, Stephanie, I wanted to ask you, because you've done so much behind the camera with production and things like that. And according to IMDb, if this is wrong, please correct me, but Re-Kill was the first time you stepped in front of the camera as an actress. How much of a different perspective does that give you when you step in front of the camera?
It was the first and only time, to be blunt, and I will tell you that I was so nervous there was a trash can placed underneath the desk, so in case I got nervous. It was kind of a running joke between all of us that I was going to be taking up the mantle of therapist, or if you spell it differently, the rapist. But it's different altogether. I mean, I think there's more of a vulnerability when you're in front of the camera, and there's a lot more riding on your shoulders. It's not. I give a lot of credit to these guys that they're able to do it every day. I couldn't. It's not something I could do on a regular basis.
Now, Jesse, I mean, you know, what do you, for the first time ever stepping in front of the camera, you know, what did you think, and what were your thoughts on working with director Valeri Milev?
Wait, what was your question again?
I said, what did you think of Stephanie stepping in front of the camera for her first role, and how was it working with director Valeri Milev?
You know what? I love it. I love when producers, I love when writers, I love when directors step in front of the camera, especially if they're not actors, because it gives them a perspective of what we have to go through, and sometimes actors can get a little bit of a bad rap for they have to take a moment, or they're like, you know what I mean? They need a second to get into wherever they need to be, and they're like, fuck, okay, let's go. We got to get going. It's like, all right, well, give me a moment. And then when they step into that role, you know, it's like, oh, shit, I get it. They need a moment to get this where they're like, oh, I understand. You know what I mean? So I love it. I love when, behind the camera people step in front of the camera, because it gives them a little bit of a perspective. Which is why I think a lot of actors who turn into directors, producers, tend to do fairly well. You know, Valeri was great. You know, there was definitely a language barrier, but he was a nice guy, and we got the shots that were needed. And Courtney was there to kind of, you know, to help us out when we didn't really know what was going on. But it was fun. I think Valeri's great. I think, he's working a ton after that, I think. And honestly, I love the people in Bulgaria. I went back and shot another movie in Bulgaria, and the reason I did, it's called Jarhead 2.
Okay.
It's like they did a straight to DVD, like sort of kind of sequel.
Did you shoot it in the same kind of location, or?
We went to Sofia. Yeah.
Okay. cool.
Yeah. It was fun. It's a Universal project.
Now, I know you guys need to go here in a minute, but I certainly wanted to ask you guys, Rekill seems to give a little bit of a different spin on the zombies genre. What is it that you hope the fans are going to take away from their experience watching this film?
You first, Jesse. Shit.
What I want them to take away? I want them to take away that it's it's a different kind of ride. It's just to kind of go in with an open mind and take some what do they call that those things for motion sickness?
Dramamine?
Dramamine, yeah.
But that stuff knocks you out.
Does it?
Yeah, I've taken it on a boat before, and I passed out.
Yeah, or eat some ginger or something before you go in, because you might get a little dizzy.
Yeah, you might get a little dizzy. I will say one thing about the film. Jesse's all fun and games, but I will say the one time that I actually tear up in the movie, it's a Jesse part. I'm not going to give too much away, but he brings a moment of sadness to the film.
I wish I knew what part it was.
Well, I mean, you probably do, but I'm not going to announce it on this live or podcast. So, but I just hope people think that it's look. There's people love the zombie culture, and this is a genre that's well beloved, and there's now 2 TV shows out there about it, and I just hope that finally, after all these years, when people see this film, it should be a cult favorite, because it is completely different. It sets itself apart from everything else in terms of the zombie genre, and it has something completely different to offer. It's got the alternate reality, but it's also got the humor and the television commercials, and I don't know, it's absorbing. It absorbs the viewer into the film, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's
with it being such a passion project, would there ever be the possibility of seeing a sequel?
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but by that time we'll all be 60.
Right?
Well, guys, like I said, I know you have to go.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you guys back on another time, either together or separately. I would love to go more in depth on some of the films you've worked on, because, Stephanie, some of the stuff that you've produced, I've watched over the years. You definitely seem to have a large foothold in the horror genre. And Jesse, I could sit here and talk to you all day just about the From Dusk Till Dawn TV series and some of the other stuff that you've worked on. But I wish you guys all the best success for this. After Dark just sent me the online screener, so when I'm done with the podcast tonight, I'll actually be sitting down to watch Rekill. And like I said, you guys are always welcome. If you have any other horror news, hopefully we'll be in touch again to have you guys on when we can have you on for more time. But thank you so much for coming on, and I hope everything goes well for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Thank you so much for coming on.
The new episode of Dusk is on right now.
Thanks for getting us.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, we just had actor Jesse Garcia from The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, and From Dusk Till Dawn, the series, which, as he just mentioned, is on right now. And we just had actress and co-producer Stephanie Caleb of Captivity, Husk, and Ritual. And we were also joined earlier by actor Roger Cross, who was a part of the X-Files, Arrow, and The Strain. The 16th of this month is the date that you need to mark on your calendar. Make sure that if the After Dark Horrorfest films are playing in your city, you are going out there to check them out. They're also available on VOD if the movies are not playing in your cities. And once again, we just spoke with the cast of Rekill. Coming up in a few moments, we are going to go into our second digital Dismemberment Spotlight for the evening, where we will be reviewing Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of the Human Centipede that is a part of the Human Centipede, the complete sequence box set. But before that, we're going to go into our final Metal Massacre Spotlight song for the evening. Once again, with world podcast exclusive music. The name of the band is Ram. The name of the CD is Svbersvm. The name of the song is Temples of Void. once again, world podcast exclusive music from Ram. The name of the CD is Svbersvm. The song was Temples of Void. Make sure to head on over to Metal Blade Records. Find out all the latest going on with Ram. Pick up the band merchandise. Find out about tours. Get the new CD. You can also check out all the other great metal that is made available to us from Metal Blade Records. Well, because our interview had to end a little short this evening, we're going to go into our digital dismemberment review here in a second. But to let you guys know that after that, I'm going to have Chris McGibbon on, who is the host of Creepshow Radio. We're going to talk for a couple minutes. We have a new show that we're going to be doing once a month on Horror Society Radio, Grave Discussions, where he and I bring in another guest and we talk about topics that pertain to the horror industry. So that's going to be highly entertaining. So stay tuned for that here. But now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our second digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we're going to be reviewing Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of The Human Centipede from the upcoming Human Centipede, the complete sequence box set. And man, I got to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably one of my favorite releases from Scream Factory, not just because of the film and what the films are, but just the sheer amount of special features and everything that they included in with this film. To give you a little bit of background info on the Human Centipede, as if most of us don't know. The Human Centipede, the first sequence, is a Dutch film that was made in 2009 that was written, directed, and co-produced by Tom Six. It basically tells the story of a German doctor who kidnaps 3 tourists and joins them surgically from mouth to anus, forming, of course, the infamous Human Centipede, a co-joined triplet. This is a film that, over the history of time, has definitely been considered one of the most gratuitous and grotesque films ever made. Of course, that's certainly open to interpretation and how you want to view it. But if nothing else can be said, it is certainly a movie that shocks and captivates its audience, whether it be just from sheer grotesquerie to the amazing effects work and even the powerful performances of the actors, in particular Dieter Laser, who plays Dr. Hyder in the film. The film also stars Ashley C. Williams, Ashlyn Yenny, and Akira Kitamura as the people that are a part of the Human Centipede. In the special features, it's talked about, people always ask, where did the concept of the film come around? And Tom Six plainly states on the Blu-ray that the concept for the film came about because of a joke he made with some friends about punishment for a child molester. And Tom Six had said that he felt that the guy should be punished by stitching his mouth to the anus of a fat truck driver. A lot of people will also draw comparisons to some of the atrocities that were committed in Nazi concentration camps, and you can certainly draw those parallels as well. It's an extremely graphic film. It's definitely not for the weak at heart. Basically, Lindsay and Jenny, there are 2 tourists from America that are in Germany, and they're going to go out to this party, and they wind up having a flat tire on the way. They wind up leaving their car to go and try and find help. They eventually, after tromping through the woods for a while, wind up at Dr. Hyder's house. And he winds up drugging them and taking them to his personal laboratory down in his house. He explains to them while they're bound that he's an expert on separating Siamese twins, but it's his dream to make a new creature by sewing people together. He describes to them in tremendous detail how he will surgically connect his three victims together so that they share a single digestive tract. Lindsay tries to escape, and that doesn't go so well for her, as she winds up being the middle segment of the Centipede because of that. Hyder explains how he had done this before with 3 dogs joining them mouth to anus, but it had died after surgery. So after kidnapping a young Chinese or Japanese man, he begins his surgery, and he puts the gentleman, Katsuro, at the front, Lindsay's in the middle, and Jenny's at the rear. He removes the teeth of both women and performs surgical skin operations to remove skin from the butts of Katsuro and Lindsay so that he can stitch the mouths to the anus. He also severs the ligaments in his victims' knees so that they can't stand up and they have to crawl everywhere, thus preventing escape, of course. Hyder completes his operations, and he tries to basically train them as a pet. With Katsuro being the lead, he throws a lot of insults and racist remarks to him, even beating them with a riding crop when he refuses to listen. It seems to be that Hyder's greatest joy is getting Katsuro to eat so that he can test the theory of a single digestive tract. Throughout the film, Hyder tries different things to get them to cooperate and behave, and Katsuro does different things to the doctor, who bites him at one point and, is punished for that. But things start to go badly when 2 detectives show up, Kranz and Valer, and they're investigating the disappearances of the 2 American tourists. Before that, the doctor starts to find out that Jenny is dying from blood poisoning and that she's going to have to be removed from the Centipede. So when the 2 detectives come to visit him, it's his vision to add them to the Centipede to make a 4-person Centipede. Well, the detectives start to question Hyder about his his house, what's downstairs, all of this. And Hyder becomes extremely belligerent, even further raising the suspicions of the detectives. They want to search his house, but he won't let them. So they threaten to come back with a search warrant. Well, they leave, and Hyder goes downstairs, and the Centipede is gone. He comes around a corner, and Katsuro stabs him in the foot with a scalpel and takes a large bite out of the side of his neck. They attempt to escape by going up a flight of steps, and they amazingly make it up. Hyder recovers and chases after them, being crippled himself, having been stabbed in the foot and the leg, and the bite on the side of his neck. They try to break out through a window, but are unable to do so. Hyder confronts them in a bedroom where there's no escape. Katsuro, feeling that there's nothing left to fight for, commits suicide, saying that he deserves his fate because of how poorly he had treated his own family. About that time, the 2 detectives return and with a search warrant and break into the house to find Hyder. They split up, but Hyder manages to kill one of the other detectives, Valer, who was ill from being drugged by Hyder earlier, who had given him a glass of water. And he hides in the pool room and kills him. Kranz hears the commotion and goes to check and finds that Valer is dead in the pool. But by the time he turns around and sees Hyder, Hyder shoots him in the stomach. Before he dies, Kranz shoots Hyder in the head. At the end of the film, you see Jenny and Lindsay. As Jenny is dying, Lindsay holds her hand, and basically both sides of the centipede are dead, leaving Lindsay trapped in the middle. And the camera basically pans away to the end into the roof of the house, and that's how the movie ends. Again, a very graphic film. I think some of the special effects work was incredibly well done. A lot of people would argue that this would be trash cinema, gore for gore's sake, and while you can certainly make arguments about this film and it being that style of film, I have to give Tom Six credit on several fronts. The first one being is it's a beautifully shot film. Say what you want, the locales are amazing, especially Hyder's house, the way it's laid out, his laboratory and his work. It's a really amazing set piece. And you kind of get the idea that it's an isolated location, which is perfect for what he's trying to do. Dieter Laser, who plays the Doctor, you can certainly see a certain level of madness behind the character. You know, there's a controlled rage, but at the same time, it can fly out and attack the victims who are the centipede, and it's a little mentally disturbing to see him basically treat them like a dog. At one point, trying to get Katsuro to fetch a paper like a dog and putting it in his mouth, and of course he resists and is beaten by the Doctor. Like I said, the sound quality, the makeup, I thought all the acting was capable. I mean, you can make the arguments, there's not much acting in this film. And I agree, but the segments where they have to move as one as a centipede, I think are really well choreographed and shows the pain that the characters are in. I also think it's unique. Say what you want about the content of the film, I certainly find it to be a unique premise. While this is not the first film to use surgery or augmentation as a means of torture and or means of advancing a human, I thought this was a really unique story and told in a very different way. You certainly do feel empathy towards the characters that are put in the position to become the human centipede. As far as a rating for this film, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. People will certainly argue with me over how high I'm going to rate this film. I have no doubt of that. But I'm also looking at it from several perspectives. Fans of the horror genre always talk about wanting something new, wanting something unique, something that they haven't seen before. Well, say what you want, Tom Six gave you all of that in this film. Is it vile? Yes. Is it disgusting? Yes. Is it for the weak-hearted? Excuse me, absolutely not. This is a film that, I wouldn't make this a date movie. This is a movie that could end a dating, end a marriage. I mean, it's really that disturbing. It ranks up there to me with films like Necromantic, with Blood-Sucking Freaks. Are they shock cinema? Yes. Are they gore cinema? Yes. But they also broke taboos. They also broke ground that other filmmakers were afraid to get into. And, again, you can say what you want. Tom Six created a buzz with this. Whether you loved or hated this film, people were talking about it. And ultimately, that's the goal. The adage of good news or bad news, it's still news, it's still out there, definitely applies to this film. And it did well enough, of course, that there was the Human Centipede 2 and the Human Centipede 3, which just recently came out. So there's definitely an audience for these types of films. Scream Factory definitely needs to be given a pat on the back for this box set. Now, over the next 2 weeks, we will certainly be covering Human Centipede 2 and Human Centipede 3. Now, this is a 3-disc Blu-ray set. The Human Centipede, the first sequence director's cut, which is the first disc, includes a load of special features. Some of that will have been included on previous releases, but there is new stuff in this box set. For the first film, there is a new segment called The Ladies of the Human Centipede, and it's a new interview with Ashley C. Williams, Ashlyn Yenny, Maddie Black, and Candace Kane. And I really enjoyed the segments with Ashley and Ashlyn. They talk about the entire process, kind of how Tom Six wanted them to do certain things because, there's not much dialogue too far into the movie after Hyder does what he does to them. So it certainly brings a lot of different elements and the process. You feel for the actresses too because they talk about how hard actors have a hard enough job as it is portraying a different character, dialogue, accents, things like that. But then while there was not as much speaking roles, being down on all fours all day, acting, and the process of putting on the makeup and how to convey emotions with just their eyes and muffled sounds, it really led to an interesting look at the film. So I thought that was great. There's an audio commentary, of course, with director Tom Six. There's plenty of behind-the-scenes footage. There's a deleted scene. There's a full-on interview with Tom Six. There are casting tapes, Foley sessions. There's an alternate poster gallery. And I think that was a really nice touch as well to show different concepts for the poster. And while I love the poster that they used, some of those other posters are interesting, and from just a sheer collecting standpoint, I wouldn't mind owning some of these alternative poster arts. And, of course, there's the theatrical trailer. Now, this disc alone, it's definitely a 10 out of 10. I really don't see too much more you could have added and wanted from this disc. And, of course, not that it's a spoiler, but when you take into account everything that's included in this box set as a whole, the disc set definitely rates as a 10 out of 10. When we review the other two films over the next 2 weeks, you'll see that Scream Factory certainly did not skimp on anything for this film. This is certainly worth picking up. I don't think you're ever going to find a more definitive version of this box set. And, you need to get this from Scream Factory as soon as you can. In fact, it was supposed to be out today. It actually streets on the 27th of this month. I don't know what else to tell you about this other than it's a must-see. Even if you're not a fan of shocking gore and violence like that's in this film, it is still certainly worth checking out and picking up. So make sure to head on over to Shout and Scream Factory and pick up your copy of the Human Centipede, the complete sequence box set. This is one that probably will not stay on the shelves, and if you're a collector, you need to go ahead and pick this one up as soon as you can. But at this time, I believe we are now joined by Chris McGibbon, the host of Creepshow Radio, soon to be making a comeback on Horror Society Radio, and my co-host for a show that we're starting next Wednesday night from 8 till 10 p.m. It's a show that'll be once a month, and we're going to be focusing on different issues in the horror genre and just horror in general. And for about 15 minutes tonight, we're just going to talk in general about what the show is going to be like, what we're going to be talking about. We may even have a small topic discussion this evening. Everyone, welcome Chris McGibbon to the show. Chris, welcome back.
What's up? I got to keep coming on here because I keep keeping all these introductions that really boost my ego.
Well, that's part of what I do. As program director, I certainly have to promote the other talent that's out there. You know what you're talking about. You know what you're doing.
Well, I guess it depends, but for the most part, yeah. So we're doing a new show next week, 8:00.
And I think this ties in really well. I know we hadn't really planned on you being on this evening until about an hour before showtime, and I found out that the interviews were going to be a little short this evening due to time constraints for the actors and actresses of Rekill. And did you hear the answer as to why Rekill was delayed for so long?
I actually did not. I have been working feverishly on a Halloween mixtape for a Halloween party my friend is having that I'm actually not even going to next weekend. He asked me if I wouldn't mind helping him out because I guess his computer shit the bed, and he wanted a Halloween mix that he could just put on and walk away from. So I have been working on that. But no, I was going to go back and listen and find out what happened. Are you going to tell me, or do I have to go back and listen?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. Of course, you're always welcome to go back and listen. But she had basically said that, that some other projects had come up. At times there were budgetary constraints, and things just kind of drew out for a while. And then, of course, After Dark went black for a year or two.
Mm.
So it just, they basically, she just finished. She finished shooting the last sequence not that long, a couple months back, but it basically took 6 years to get the film completed and put out.
I hope that movie's amazing.
Oh, I just got sent the online screener, so I will definitely let you know about that.
All right, you got to keep me in mind for that then.
Oh, I certainly will. But of course we're, next Wednesday we're going to start our new show, and the show is called Grave Discussions. And for fans that listen to us, everyone knows that Chris and I are very passionate when it comes to the horror genre and things that go on. We get a lot of news that the general public is not always privy to. We get this news a little earlier sometimes, and there are times that Chris and I will sit on the phone and talk for hours about certain subjects, and it just became fairly obvious that we should do a show where we take a topic and we discuss it. And I think, tonight calling in is so fortuitous because I want to take people back. You had mentioned on Facebook not that long ago, you had done a show where you and some other guests on Creepshow Radio back in the day had talked about the Human Centipede, and it just happened to fall that I was covering the Human Centipede release tonight. And I remember going back and listening to that show and just how passionate everyone was on that show. Do you want to give everyone a little background info on that show?
Oh, well, that was it was back when the movie, the Part 2 came out, and they were talking about, they weren't talking about it, they were doing it. They were basing the movie in England, and it was the first movie in a really long time that had been banned from England. So obviously it caused quite a stir. And what had happened was the discussion itself was originally just a news. This is the news we were reporting. We actually had an entire show planned that night, and it turned into, we're going to talk about this for a little while, and then a little while turned into an hour, and then we had people calling in, and it really just sort of like let loose a lot of things that people were kind of ready to roll with. One of the people who I feel like got the most passionate about it was Tom, who was a host on Creepshow Radio, or prior to that, Horror Theater Radio. And Tom was a very unconventional horror fan in a lot of ways. but a very passionate person, and he was not a fan of what the Human Centipede was to him, and what he felt like it represented. And I am not a fan of those movies either, but I'm of the mindset that if I don't like something, I just don't watch it. And I haven't seen Human Centipede. It's not one of those movies or films that I feel like I need to see. I haven't heard anything that swayed me differently. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of, next thing we knew, it was an hour and a half later, and the show was over. We had only discussed the film and the first film and the sort of controversy of it being banned and what it meant for future horror films. And ironically, it meant really didn't mean a whole lot, because it was the first one in a long time, and seems to have been the only one in a long time. I haven't heard of any others being banned, so I guess we're in the clear.
And that's interesting, and like I said, I'm glad that this came together. We have about 20 minutes or so before the show goes off, but I think I want to give people a little bit of a taste of what they can expect. And I was thinking through my mind while you were talking, what could we talk about for 20 minutes that would give people an idea of what they're going to get when they tune in next Wednesday? And you did it. Let's just go with this. You just said that, there are some films that you just, you don't want to see. There was nothing that, even hearing people talk about it, it didn't make you want to see the film, or, stuff like that. Let's talk about that for a moment, because I think that's something in the genre that I think people are forgetting. Just so people know, I won't give away your age, Chris, unless you're fine with that. But
I don't care.
I haven't. Okay, you're 27, right?
I'm 28.
28. Oh, don't sound so offended. I was off by a year. Chris is 28. I'm 39. And I've always found a lot of times with younger horror fans or younger horror journalists sometimes that they're not as quite a completist in their film history. And with Chris, Chris is one of those people that I can talk to on any level when it comes to horror, and we get each other. We may not exactly always agree on the subject, but we respect each other's opinion, and, we can hold intelligent discussions with one another. So you just said that, like I said, if you don't like something, you don't watch it. You don't have to read it. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to listen to it. Kind of talk about how that's become a lost art to you, for you, when it comes to people complaining and banning horror films these days.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, it's not really a lost art in the sense, because I mean, think about it. Back in the 80s and whatnot, it was being done more frequently then. I mean, look at the UK. In some instances, it was illegal to own one of the movies that was featured on the video nasty list. You could actually go to prison for owning, owning or renting the movie, or having the movie to rent. So I think that was probably the most extreme it's ever gotten, and thankfully it hasn't been that extreme since then. It's horror. I mean, people feel like horror's changed a lot in the last 20 years, and why I agree to an extent, there's definitely a sort of surgence in there being not as much creativity as there used to be. There was a lot more where you felt like you were, even if you were watching a piss-poor, bad movie that just absolutely sucked, you felt like that somebody, in some respect, put some kind of effort into it. Because it was, whether or not you were making a movie you knew wasn't going to be very good, or you were making a movie you thought was going to be the next best thing, you were shooting on film, which meant every time you started filming, you were spending money, or somebody was spending money, and that meant that the best effort had to be put forth by whoever was in front and behind of that camera to the best of their abilities, which usually meant, in some cases, that, the best they had to offer was not the best other filmmakers may have to offer. There might have been someone else who could have done it a little bit better. it really sort of depends. So with that being said, I mean, I don't feel like they've changed as much as some people think they have, because it's really not as drastically different. I just think now in this day and age with computers and technology, we are just able to kind of pick up on it more. We are able to see it firsthand and sort of be exposed to it, and right away that this is going on, and everybody can have their immediate reaction right away too. A lot of folks online, and I'm guilty of this too, they start typing away, and they don't really sit down to think before they react, and the next thing you know, they're arguing back and forth with somebody on Facebook or a message board or whatever, and it's just it's needless in most sense, and you get nothing out of it. So,
well, see, I think I think the point that you brought up there that was interesting was, you talk about, has horror really changed over the last 20 years? And the question that I'll pose to you is it that horror has changed, or is it that society has changed? And what I mean by that is, you can watch stuff on the news that is so much more frightening and graphic than anything that you can watch in a horror film. The perfect example I'll give you is the anchorman that strapped the GoPro on himself and went out and shot another news anchor and a cameraman live on TV. And it was shown. And it got posted to social media, and, it was everywhere.
Right.
Is it so much that horror has changed, or has it just become the fact that we have become so desensitized to the violence that we don't complain about it being on the news, we don't complain about it being on our social media, we don't complain about it being in the newspapers, and horror is just the whipping boy?
Well, I don't think, because I think that falls into the whole technology aspect. It's so much different now. I mean, something like that where a newscaster is being shot on live TV and passed around, well, you said the magic word, live. Back in the 80s, back in the 70s, if something was live and somebody wanted it to disappear, it was really easy for somebody to make that disappear, or easier. Once something is out there in the world today, you can't get rid of it. It doesn't matter if you posted it to one site or if you posted it to 1,000. If something goes out on the internet, it becomes forever. It becomes its own thing. It takes on a life of its own. I'll actually give you a good example. When I was doing the Video Dead DVD campaign, I made a mock-up poster for the movie to help promote the campaign because there were no good images of the poster online. So I was very fortunate to receive the key artwork without the titles on it, which means it's basically just a painting of the zombie bursting out of the TV with nothing else but that. And I made a poster that I wasn't really crazy about, but it was just something to get out there. As soon as I uploaded it, I was like, oh, I'm not crazy about that. I'm going to do another one. And I did another one I liked better. I couldn't get rid of the old one, though. It went all over the place. People were posting it left and right. It still pops up on Google. It's not attached to my name in any way, but it's still around. I can't get rid of it. It's there. It's part of that history now. It's gone, out, and that's the way it is. With technology today, it's so easy for someone to see something and go, oh, I'm going to post that on Facebook, or, oh, I'm going to post that on YouTube. I'm going to post that here. Wherever they feel like posting it, I mean, that's just the way it is. As far as us becoming desensitized to violence and making horror films the scapegoat, I don't think that's changed much either. I think, again, it's just we're getting more exposure to it. I mean, look at films like Silent Night, Deadly Night, Moms in America, which got banned from theaters. Movies like Cannibal Holocaust were banned in the U.S. for 26 years before they were legal to own. They were illegal to own them here. Grindhouse released that film for the first time ever on DVD. So, it's not like we haven't experienced this before. We're just noticing it more now because, again, it's out there more. We can see it more. It's in our face. We can't avoid it. We can't overlook it because it's right there in front of us because technology puts it right there in front of us. But I still kind of stand behind. I don't think things are that much different. I just think now we're noticing more of what's going on because we can. It's right there. It's hard to avoid. So.
Well, that's an interesting take on it, and that leads to the next question is, because everything is so readily available through internet, social media and things like that, are you surprised that in this day and age, the current age that we live in, that films are still being banned?
Yes. Yeah, I was surprised when I heard about it back then. I would still be surprised if I heard about it now, but I haven't since then. That was the only time I had heard of a movie being banned in recent history, which is why I wanted to bring it up on that show, because it was kind of a big deal. And a lot of us thought that this meant that this could open the door for other films to kind of follow suit. And it obviously that wasn't the case at all. I haven't heard anything about any other films being banned or anything of that nature. As far as I know, Human Centipede 2 was the only one, and I could be mistaken, but that ban might even be lifted at this point. The movie might be available overseas. I've never looked into it to find out. I really don't know, but it very well could be.
Well, you talk about recent movies, and I know, again, it's not one that you would watch. I certainly dip into the harder end of the gore spectrum than you do. But Stephen Biro from Unearthed Films had just recently posted that the American Guinea Pig, the most recent one that he made, has been banned in Germany.
Mm-hmm. It's
still going on.
It's going on, but Germany, I don't know if anybody Germany still censors their movies. Germany has not stopped doing that. There are still movies being released, brand new movies being released on DVD and Blu-ray that they actually offer most of the time offer two different versions of, an uncut and a cut version. And the cut versions are more widely available in Germany than the uncut ones are. The uncut ones are kind of like specialty ones you have to order from websites and whatnot. You can't readily get them at stores. It's kind of like what Walmart was trying to do for a while. They were trying to carry censored versions of movies by the distributor offering censored versions of the films that they were offering them, and Walmart was the only place you could get them. Only kind of the opposite, reverse that. So there are more instances of you being in Germany being able to find the cut version as opposed to the uncut version. But that doesn't surprise me in Germany. It does to an extent because I've seen some of the filmmakers that German people come up with, and your films that German filmmakers come up with, you're kind of like, and you're banning this? Like, you just kind of, you kind of don't know which way is up or down at that point. So it's a weird spectrum, and it's a weird sort of outlook. But I mean, that was happening in the 80s too. Films were banned then. They were cut back then. Germany, the UK especially. We even got cut versions of movies. We didn't necessarily ban them, so to speak. I think that Cannibal Holocaust is probably the only one that I think wasn't. I don't even know if it was necessarily banned here. I just think nobody wanted to release it here. Nobody wanted to kind of take the chance on that kind of a film. I think back for 1980, it was a little too much for any U.S. market, no matter how edited down it got, or maybe there wasn't enough of a movie left once they got it to a version where they thought it would be okay for American markets. I don't know. I don't know the total history behind that film, but I do know that it was not available legally here, or at least on a legitimate format, until the Grindhouse put the DVD out. So, so it's not like it's never happened before. I just think it falls into, we are noticing it more. We're seeing it more because we have the ability to, and we're discussing it more because we have the ability to. I mean, I would never have met you 20 years ago. I would never be on the phone with you 20 years ago. I wouldn't have half the friends I have now 20 years ago that live locally as horror fans, because I never would have met them outside of the internet. So that opens up a lot of doors to connect with people on a positive and in a negative fashion, and we do see a lot of people going back and forth in a negative light online and talking about these things, and news that used to be, central to a part of a country, or part of a whatever continent, is now worldwide news. Something happens in the UK, we find out about it. If a movie's banned, we know about it. Whereas before, is like Zombie, like for instance, when Zombie came out on VHS in 1981, 82, whatever it was, nobody in the U.S. probably realized it was banned in the U.K. or it was heavily cut in the U.K. It probably wasn't anything anyone over here really cared or even really thought to ask anybody, well, do you know if this is banned overseas? So it wasn't really anything anybody really knew about, or even really cared about, essentially. Maybe we are becoming a little more sensitive to, like, someone else's plight in that sense, but I feel like today horror filmmakers are looking, genuine horror filmmakers that want to make a genuinely horrifying film are kind of looking to push the envelope more than ever. You look at a movie like Murder Set Pieces, if somebody had seen that script in 1981, 82, 83, whatever, go on to like 1999, even the early 2000s, they probably would have had the person committed who wrote it. They probably would have called for like some kind of psychiatric treatment to say this person needs to be under constant observation, under constant care. There's something wrong with this person. But that film got made in the last 10 years. Movies like that, and even the Human Centipede movies, the Guinea Pig movies, the vomit gore films, those are all were made in the last 10 years, last 15 years, whatever it was. They never would have been made 20 years ago. Nobody ever would have pushed the envelope that far, or nobody would have wanted to try, because nobody would have put money in someone's hand to make those kinds of movies, and nobody would have agreed with that content. But I don't feel like it's more sensitive. I just feel like that the envelope, things weren't being pushed that far yet. Now we're trying to get even further. Think about it. If we're at a point now where two people being sewn ass to mouth in a horror film is no longer the most extreme thing someone can think of, we've gone pretty far away from what the extreme was, considering rape was the extreme 20 years ago. That was the top of the chain. If you had a rape scene in your movie, that meant your movie was just like complete and utter, hardcore trash, or it was a hardcore horror film, and horror fans would be wanting to see it. Now, what's the extreme? Well, it's a man raping his baby. Raping a small boy. You know what I mean? Like, that's the extreme now. That's the standard that's set. Is okay, now somebody has to get over that and make something worse than that someday. We've got to think about that. Somebody somewhere is eventually going to top a man raping an infant baby and his own son. In the same movie, mind you. Happens twice in the same movie. Someone has to stop that someday. So I actually don't think, in that sense, horror has really suffered much at all. I think in some ways it has, where, again, it's much easier to get something made, so the quality has definitely suffered a bit. But as far as the overall content for the stuff that people are actually trying to set forth an honest-to-goodness effort and make something that is going to stand out in 20 years, or something that's going to maybe make people start talking, even if it's just for a year, I think that's definitely still there. It's more of a business now, but, it's always been a business, so, what are you going to do?
Last question, and we'll make this one really quick, because we don't want to give away too much for what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. But
I know.
As simply and as quickly as you can put it, in your opinion, is there anything left that is considered too taboo for horror?
Oh, I don't know. That would be the top of the tier now, wouldn't it? And I'm not perverted or twisted enough to get there yet. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know anything that could be worse than seeing a father rape his son, seeing, even suggesting that is pretty bad, and actually being able to see it is pretty bad too. And then you got stuff like Murder Set Pieces, where you've got a 3-year-old who doesn't understand that his mother's acting and isn't really dead, and what kind of that mom's going to have to pay someday for psychiatric care, because he's going to have these flashbacks of crying over his mom's corpse and not realizing that she was just pretending and it was all make-believe. Even if she got up and stood up and told him afterwards, there was a genuine sense of dread and fear in that kid's face in that film when he sees his mom dead and wants her to wake up and she won't wake up, and there's a strange man coming after him with a weapon. That's either going to be the worst nightmare for that kid for the rest of his life, or he, again, is going to be spending a lot of time in therapy. So I feel like that, I guess we're not there. I hope we never get there, because I think when you get to the top, where else do you have to go? I mean, you got to either go up to the next tier or go down. And I feel like today, the most successful horror films that I've seen are ones that, for all intents and purposes, are just good-natured fun and don't necessarily try to push the envelope. The most controversial ones, the ones that the outside of the horror genre notice, are the ones that try to push the envelope. But the ones that horror fans, I think, really seem to revel in are the ones that go for the good, go as a good old-fashioned horror flick. They try to scare you, or they try to be fun and entertaining. I mean, look how much love Trick or Treat has, and
right.
And that movie today, it's almost 10 years old. But it's still celebrated. It's a staple for every horror fan on Halloween. Sam has become a Halloween icon, and that is not really a scary movie. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great film to watch during the Halloween season. I don't watch it unless it's October, because it makes me want Halloween very badly, and if it's not October, I can't have it for however many months. I don't want to think about it, so I wait till October to watch it, but I love that movie. So,
respectable.
That, I guess. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to tune in Wednesday night here on Horror Society Radio for Grave Disturbances, where Chris McGibbon and I will be talking about things in horror that a lot of people probably aren't thinking about or talking about. We will have a special guest that evening. Chris, could you tell everyone who our guest is?
Oh, yes. Our guest is former co-host and current writer Brian Harris. Brian is actually has been a longtime friend of mine and contributor to, owner of Wang's Chop magazine, which is a very popular zine that you can get right through Amazon. And again, he also hosted with us on Creepshow Radio. Brian also used to own and operate Wildside Cinema, JoeHorror.com, and he also ran one of the biggest horror film groups on Facebook, which was aptly just simply called Horror Films. It has over 15,000 members, and that man used to run the show over there. So this is a guy who really knows what he's talking about, and has had a lot of experience in the genre. So he's going to be a great guest to have on for our topic. So
it's going to be fun, man. Well, look, Chris, I got to wrap the show up, but I will be in touch with you a little bit later on this evening. We'll iron out some more details, but we're ready to kick that ass on Wednesday.
All right. Well, I will see you all and talk to you all on Wednesday. And, yeah. All right. I'm out. Peace.
Awesome, man. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was Chris McGibbon, the host of Creepshow Radio, exclusively on Horror Society Radio, and my co-host for Wednesday's show, Grave Discussions. Make sure to check that out. It's been a hell of a show this evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say thank you to Tatiana and everyone at After Dark Horrorfest, 8 Films to Die For coming on to the show over the last month and discussing all the great films. Tonight we had on actor Jesse Garcia, actress and co-producer Stephanie Caleb, and actor Roger Cross, who are all a part of Rekill. Make sure on October 16th to go to the selected cities in the area that will be playing the 8 Films to Die For. And if you can't catch them in the cinemas where you're at, check them out on VOD. We want to say thank you to our friends at Metal Blade Records for sending us out Ram's most recent upcoming release, Svbersvm. Make sure to head on over to Metal Blade Records to get a piece of that and all of the other fantastic metal that's available. Thank you to our friends at Scream Factory for sending us the Human Centipede Complete Sequence box set coming out October 30th. Well worth the pickup. And thank you to our friends at SGL Entertainment for sending us our Blu-ray release of Deadly Revisions. Until next week, this is your host, the Dead Man Michael Jones of HorrorSociety.com and Living Dead Magazine, telling you all to rest